Hey everybody, this is Bill. Deb's visiting with friends over there at the pop-up. And we just had a pretty heavy thunderstorm here. It lasted about 30-45 minutes or so. And we needed the rain. And man, it came down in buckets just a little bit ago. And a lot of us hunkered down underneath the pop-up. Well, we ended up having to hold the pop-up a little bit because the wind kicked up pretty hard. But it's all over with now. And the real reason why I'm here is I want to show you the progress that we have made. Let me get this thing brought back down and bring this back over like this. But I want to show you the progress that I've made so far on the power station that we're building in the back of the van, actually turning the van into a solar generator. It eventually will be a 600 amp hour solar generator. So right now I've got I've got my extra shelf here laying on top. So let me go ahead and get that shelf pulled off right quick, and then I'll show you more about this system. Be right back. All right, here we are. And we've got our inverter in here now. Now this is for a 12-volt system. This is our second inverter like this. We have one made from the same company and everything that we have in the trailer, and we've had it in the trailer for 3 years. It's a 24-volt version because we have a 24-volt system in the trailer. But since we're building a 12-volt system out here, and I'll get more into that here in just a little bit, we had to go with a 12-volt version of it here. And we haven't had 1 minute's issue with this particular brand of inverter. This company called Reliable. It's upside down right now. I'll post a link to this one, but it's also available in a 24-volt version as well, like I stated. Now, right now, when we first started with this, we had one battery, and we did a pretty simple setup at first. We simply set up the one battery, set up a positive and negative bus bar, and then brought in the charge controller. At the time, we had a 20 amp charge controller. We've since upgraded to a 30 amp charge controller, and I'll tell you why here in just a little bit on that too. But that was our initial setup, and it was mainly just to get the original battery charged up, because they don't come charged completely. The batteries come from Power R Us. We'll post a link. Both of these batteries are 200 amp hour batteries, and they are equipped with self-heating. They're lithium iron phosphate batteries, and like I say, eventually we'll have a third one, which will end up sitting right there in the middle. So when we got the second battery, we went ahead and set all this up here that you see right here. Now, the reason why we went to the 30 amp charge controller over the 20 that we had before, the panels that we have on top, we have two 200 watt panels on top. Well, in a 12 volt setup, they are capable of producing a lot more than 20 amps coming into the battery. And I noticed that when I was monitoring it, when I got really good exposure to the sun with the panels, that when we hit 20 amps coming in, that the charge controller would automatically kick in and throttle it back. So we could never pull more than 20 amps, although we had a potential to pull, closer to 30 amps. So when we went to the second battery, we went ahead and upgraded to a 30 amp charge controller that is hooked up directly, of course, to the two 200 watt panels we have on top. Eventually, when we get our third battery, we will also be adding 2 more 200 watt panels on top. So we'll have a total of 800 watts on top of the van. And when we do that, we will add another charge controller just like this one, and it will be set up for the second set of panels, and it will be mounted right here, and the terminals will be pointed that way. So when the wires come in from upstairs up on top of the van, they'll come down, come through that area right over there, and then of course one set of panels will turn and go this way, and the other set will go that way, and then we'll pull off and go to the respective bus bars with each charge controller. So that's the way that will work. Now, some of you are going to say, well, why didn't you run a 24 volt system? Well, I could run a 24 volt system, but then I would be limited to 2 batteries. I don't have room for 4 batteries in here, but I do have room for 3. So with this one, I went with a 12-volt system, because when I add the 3rd battery, you know, they'll all be in parallel. The next thing I'll point out is that yes, all of the battery cables coming off of these batteries are the same length, coming into what I refer to as the primary bus bars up here at top. And then jumping from the primary to the secondary bus bars down here, which is where I'll be pulling all of my loads off for whatever I end up running off of these bus bars. You know, that's how I run the jump down. And of course on this side I went with a 250 amp breaker. I don't ever expect to see more than roughly about 150, maybe 160 amps being pulled off of this system in 12 volt. And the reason why I say that is because the system that we have in the trailer, and here again we have a 3000 watt pure sine wave inverter, the same company, same brand, only it's a 24 volt version. When I'm monitoring it and we're running you know, some of our big items, the most I've ever seen come off of that is around 68 amps. Now watts is watts is watts. 24 volt system pulling 68 amps would be equal to a 12 volt system pulling less than 140 amps. Okay, so I really don't expect to see anything beyond 150 amps. This is 2-aught wire, which is good for a lot more than that, of course. And anyway, that's the way that's works. So we have a 250 amp breaker right here to cover that. And then of course this is where the shunt connects right here. I had to do a little bit of finagling to make all this stuff work when I was doing my cables, because as you can see by these bus bars sitting over here, they're sitting down right on the console board, and you can see how much lower they are in relation to these. Well, I had to shim these bus bars up because the connections on the shunt, it sets taller off of the floor. So I ended up taking 3/4 inch plywood and cutting a couple of shims, and then, you know, elevating the negative bus bars so that it would be a fairly level shot, because 2-aught wire, especially in such short, this pretty much going from one lug to the next lug, there's maybe that much wire insulation in between each one, you know, to make them fit to run the jumpers across over here, and the same over there. So I ended up having to shim up the bus bars here to make that come out level, because the wire just ain't going to bend like that. You know, there's not going to be enough there to bend. Over here, the bus bars actually set just a little taller than this breaker, so I had to shim up the breaker a little bit to get these jumpers fairly level between each other. Little things that I wasn't expecting when I was wiring all this up. So anyway, that's how that all ended up working out, but I had to do a little bit of extra finagling here to make everything work, but it all works out real well. I'm a little disappointed on how the wiring is ran here right now. I'm going to be redoing that somehow, especially when I get my 3rd battery, where it'll be a little bit neater. I'm thinking that I may drill some holes in this face board here, strategically placed so that some of the wires coming off of the batteries can go underneath. There's enough room for the wires to go underneath, and then they can turn around laying on top of the battery and come back out through the holes then to their respective bus bars. So that's one thing I'm considering when I go to install the next battery, because all these cables we're going to have to be the same length no matter what. So I've got to figure out a way to a really neat way to arrange all these so I don't have to worry about those kind of things. The plan is, from this point on, of course, is to get the 3rd battery, then eventually, of course, as funds allow, the other charge controller that will mount right here, just like this one over here, and that, of course, will be when I get another 400 watts up on top of the van. These will be on separate charge controllers. I'm wanting to match the panels, but I'm having a hard time finding the exact same panels that we started out with on top of the van, you know, about 2-3 years ago. So I may have to settle for a different brand of panels, but they will be on their separate charge controller. Or I'll find somebody that can use the panels I have on top and go with either 4 200-watt panels, all of the same brand on top, or go with 2 400-watt panels on top of the van. But in any case, either case, it doesn't matter. There will be a separate charge controller per each 400 watts of solar is what I'll have. And there's reasons behind that I've learned the hard way through the trailer system. Now, also the plan beyond here is, if you'll notice here on the end, and it's kind of hard to see because I've got this mounted, but you can see where, we've got 2 regular 15 amp outlets right here on the end of the inverter. But you've also got a spot here where you can hardwire, your power coming out. And there's a hot wire, a neutral wire, and a ground wire coming off of here. And if you were going to say go to a panel, a regular house type panel or whatever, that's where you come off of, which is the way we did it in the trailer. So I'm looking at an option of mounting a small 4-circuit panel, breaker panel, right here, and then bringing them through and coming into here, and then coming off of that through a 30 amp breaker, coming up and over with my cable, and ending up with a RV style 30 amp outlet mounted somewhere along the side of the van right here. Because the plan is this will be an auxiliary power source for the trailer, is what this is going to be. Because we're running the same kind of inverter in the trailer. We can run everything just fine on the trailer. We have to be selective, of course. We can't run the water heater and the mini split at the same time, or at least we don't anyway. Some people say that they're able to do it. Well, we don't even try. We go ahead and turn off the mini split when we're turning on the water heater. It takes 15 minutes to make hot water. We take our hot showers, turn the water heater back off, turn the mini split back on, and we're in business. So, we don't want to take a chance on taxing the system. But this system will be every bit as capable of running the trailer as the battery bank system that we have inside the trailer. So this is the whole reason behind building this right here. There is, on the underside of this inverter, there is a ground stud on the underside of the inverter down there. And so what we did, and it's on the AC side, it's for the AC side. So we tied this number 10 cable right here, this number 10 cable right here, to that ground stud with an eyelet, and came out, and then we've got it grounded to the chassis right here. And that's how we managed to get that done. Now, I will talk a little bit about the difference in lengths on these 2 cables here. I did lots of research on this, and all of my research told me that as long as you're just running one inverter, that these 2 do not have to be the same length right here. It's imperative that all these cables are the same length up here, because that can make a difference on how each battery gets its charge based on resistance or the lack of resistance in the wiring. So it's imperative that all those cables are the same. But when we get to here, from the research that I've done, it shows that that's not that important. In order to make this work in such a small space that I had here, I had to special order some 90-degree lugs, and I had to get a pack of 6, so I've got 5 left. But anyway, that's how I was able to make that work. And it was took us a long time just to figure out how we wanted to lay everything out, and we tried every different configuration you could think of before we ever started mounting things up permanently. So we have tried all the other, those of you who are thinking, well, why didn't you do it this way, or why didn't you do it that way? We probably did try it that way, and everything wasn't going to fit the way we needed it to fit. So anyway, now I'll go ahead and give me a second, and I'm going to get a air hose hooked up to the compressor just so I can lower the pressure down with a blowgun, so I can get the compressor to kick on and show you how cool this thing works. All right, got my blowgun here, and I bled some air off of there. I had a little bit of air in the compressor, and I wanted to make sure it would kick on. So let's do that. And we've got the inverter turned on, And the only thing that I wish was a little bit different about this setup is I have to crook my neck pretty good in order to see the readout down there. But I can get down there where I can see it and make sure it's producing the voltage. And right now it's showing that it's making about 123 volts on the AC end of it there. So that's all working well. Now we're going to fire up the compressor. All right, fires right up. It's got plenty of power. Let me see if I can pull up the shunt here right quick, and we'll do it again, and we'll show you what kind of power it's pulling. And there's the shunt right there. And right now it's showing the batteries to be at 13.55 volts, the battery bank right now. And we're consuming at the moment 0.92 amps, and I'm pretty sure what that is just what it's pulling to operate the inverter before we pull any power off of it. So the inverter, when it's just sitting still not doing nothing, is pulling almost 1 amp off of a 12 volt system. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and turn it back on. And if you look closely there with the compressor on, we're pulling around 89 to 90 amps, which is almost 1200 watts. And it's indicating that if we were to let it keep running like that, well, the hour meter's going down. Eventually it'll settle at around 6 hours or so that we can run it at that with this setup right here. But yeah. Now, what's neat about this setup, and I'll show you this right quick. This is the app. The batteries themselves have their own Bluetooth. You can actually monitor them. And this is showing battery number 177. If you look up there in the upper left hand corner, 177, it's showing the voltage here, and I don't have my glasses on. I think it says 13.3, but I'm not positive. Now what we can do, we can go over, hit the Bluetooth, and now we're looking for battery number 176, which is that one right there. So we're going to connect to it. So now it's connecting to 176. There we go. Now it's showing 176 at 13.3 volts right there. So that's how you're able to monitor them through this other app. One thing I did find, that they're not always totally inconsistent. They're not consistent all the time, although right now they are. Maybe they're smoothing out, and maybe they will be from this point forward. But yesterday I was getting a little concerned because the readouts between the two batteries were not exactly the same. They were just a little bit different than each other as far as the voltage was concerned. So what I did, just to make sure everything was okay, I pulled out my handy dandy Klein multimeter, my voltmeter, and double checked them, and it showed both batteries right on the money at 13.5 volts each yesterday. Now this morning, before I turned anything on, I checked the shunt, and then I checked both battery apps on both batteries, and everything, the shunt and both batteries, showed 14.1. Now the shunt actually shows something like, I'm not looking at it right now, but I think you're looking at it, but the shunt actually showed like 14.13, 0.14, something like that. So it's gonna, it's gonna fine tune it down to what it's closer to. But everything was, as far as I'm concerned, was consistent there. But if you were just running just one battery, you probably wouldn't have to use a shunt if you didn't want to, because you could go buy just the app that's built into the battery itself, which is what these Power Us batteries have. They have a built-in Bluetooth on them. So anyway, I was just showing you that so you would know about that. So pretty excited about how it's all coming out. It's all working out well. This was the first time I had really made connections on this big wire with the special hydraulic crimping tool that I bought and everything. I was a little apprehensive about it at first, but hey, it's easy. It wasn't nothing to it. Just got to take your time and think through it. But anyway, everything's all working well. Still got more to do with it, of course, and we will keep adding. And when we add more stuff to it, we will, you know, add more to this particular playlist. This is on its own special playlist right here. So you'll be able to reference from the beginning till now and beyond when we start doing more stuff. But right now we're pretty happy with everything. When we start adding other stuff to it, we will show you that. When we start adding the 30 amp outlet to the side of the van, we'll show you how we did all that. Of course, that'll come after we get the third battery installed, and after we get the other set of panels on top, and after, of course, we get the other 30 amp charge controller in here. So anyway, that's where we are to this point. And Deb will tell you that when I got this all going, yeah, I hooked my foot on the air hose. Deb will tell you that I was as giddy as a schoolboy, wasn't I? When,
we had a yay!
Yeah, yeah, sure did. Because it was just pretty cool when we fired the inverter up and everything worked just the way it was supposed to, you know. Of course, you know, I've still got Marvin to reference with, and I've been talking to Marvin quite a bit. Marvin and Mary, those of you that have been following us for any length of time, you're familiar with Marvin and Mary. They're one of our most successful walkthrough videos, and he is the one that we consider in the Tiny House Adventures family as the solar guru. Well, they have since embarked on a new adventure, and we can go ahead and say it now. I don't know if we've ever said it before.
No, I'm sure.
But they are in Panama for a while, the country of Panama. Yes. So anyway, but me and Marvin, we talk on a regular basis, and I sent him photos all along while we was doing all this, and I just want Marvin to know that I really appreciate everything he's done to help me with this setup.
Well, Marvin and Brad and Ed.
Oh yeah, and Brad and Ed, they've come along and thrown in their 2 cents worth. We're all learning a bunch of stuff together and all, you know, putting our heads together on this kind of stuff. But it's been fun. And it'll be even more exciting when we can actually plug the trailer into the van and run the trailer with the van, yeah. You know. And the whole idea behind that is when we use up, when we need to let the batteries in the trailer recover, all we got to do is plug into the van, because theoretically it should be fully charged, and then we can run the trailer off of the van while the trailer batteries are recovering.
Theory, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna work.
Oh yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that something like that would work. So that's the whole idea behind this. And before we go, I want to make sure that everybody knows, and I already know this, I won't be running the compressor when I'm running the trailer. I already know that.
Duh.
Yeah, that's kind of a duh. But somebody's going to come in and say, well, you can't do that and do that at the same time. I know that. So anyway, but what's cool about that too, if we have a low tire going down the road, guess what?
We can pull over and there it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right there.
Right there.
Yeah. Or if someone else has a problem and needs air in a tire, we can just pull up to them and don't have to plug into nothing. Just throw a switch and there we go.
And boom.
Yeah. Boom. Just as we say in our tagline, the battery died. Yeah. So we're going to try it again. This is Bill and Deb with I Ride Tiny House Adventures, and you know exactly what we're going to say. We're not camping.
We are living.
We made it. All right. Y'all take care. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.